28 days at sea, what really happened in the Med. Today we're unraveling our thrilling 28 days of sailing the Mediterranean. We're sharing what actually happened and if our expectations were met or exceeded, or if the experience fell short of what we'd hoped for and dreamed about while we crossed the North Atlantic Ocean for over a 32-day span. Our opinions in this video, after having our own personal experience in the Med, may just shock y'all. In fact, some of our opinions could be quite unpopular, and we're certain some of y'all will downright strongly disagree with us on some of what we have to say. So prepare for a shocker as we spill the beans on Morocco, as we share some things that took us by surprise, a place that left us feeling intrigued and curious, the truth about the glamour of the French Riviera, if the Med has been the paradise we envisioned, and if there's a secret to reveal about boating the Med that sailors might not be ready to hear. Now that we've placed our sailboat Tela Ru into a slip for the remainder of the winter, which we shared in last week's video, we can reflect and give an accurate picture of what it was like for us to sail to 4 countries over the span of 28 different sailing days in the Mediterranean. We also visited Monaco during that time, but that was by train, not by boat. Before we hand over the juicy stuff, here's a brief description of the area. The Mediterranean Sea is a large inland sea between South Europe, North Africa, and Southwest Asia, linked with the Atlantic by the Strait of Gibraltar, with the Red Sea by the Suez Canal, and with the Black Sea by the Dardanelles Sea of Marmara. During our time in the Mediterranean, we sailed through the Alboran Sea, the Balearic Sea, and the Ligurian Sea. Some people hear that age-old phrase about sailing the 7 seas, but the word sea actually refers to a portion of the ocean that is partially surrounded by land. There are actually around 50 seas in the world. Comment below and let us know if that's something you already knew. These are the areas of the Mediterranean that we sailed. First to Morocco, then onwards to Ibiza and Palma de Mallorca, the Balearic Islands. Then we sailed to Saint-Tropez, France, and hopped down the Côte d'Azur for a total of 7 stops in southern France, ending our French sailing in Menton, France. Next, we sailed on the coast of Italy, starting with San Remo and ending in Riva di Triano, before we attempted to leave Italy and head back in the direction we came from, where we stopped in La Spezia, and then finally placed Tela Ru into a slip in France for a bit. Before we dive into our revelations about sailing the Med, let's rewind and talk expectations. Crystal clear anchorages, daily swims, sun-soaked days. We had it all pictured. But did reality align with our daydreams? Or did the Mediterranean have other plans for us? We had heard so much about the unique winds of the Med. We heard that it would either be blowing hard or you'd have no winds and would be stuck on the motor. So that was honestly our expectation about that. We definitely imagined serene coves with stunning crystal clear anchorages, the water being that picturesque aquamarine color. As you can imagine, we assumed we'd be anchored in many beautiful places. In fact, we assumed we'd at least be anchoring half the time, if not the majority of the time, in the Mediterranean. We thought it would likely be fairly upscale in most of the places we were headed once arriving in France, with large yachts and sailing vessels. I mean, Saint-Tropez and Cannes, France are well known for being ultra luxurious. Cannes is known for its annual Cannes Film Festival. It's known for hosting the world's rich and famous in luxury hotels and on mega yachts, as is Saint-Tropez. We imagined when we entered the Mediterranean and sailed to our first country within the Med, Morocco, that it would be an exotic, exciting, and thrilling place to visit, with equally unique, flavorful, and exotic cuisine. When we sailed from Morocco to Ibiza, an island of Spain, we anticipated that it would be party central 24/7, surrounded by that clear water. Daily dinghy rides to land where we'd indulge in that out there and eccentric vibe we'd expected, with out-of-this-world anchorages to choose from. While Ibiza was originally famous for its hippie lifestyle from the 1960s onward, Paris Hilton's presence there arguably made Ibiza even a more desirable destination, which one may assume prior to visiting, like us, that with celebrities like Paris Hilton spending so much time there, that it would be more than just a party zone. Maybe it would be an upscale elevated party zone. When we sailed to France, we expected the Côte d'Azur to be its own European version of the Caribbean, tropical even, if you will, with plenty of room to spread out in hidden and protected coves. We expected warm sunshine, warm water to dip in, that our days would be filled with bliss, primarily enjoying life from our boat being on the crystal clear water. Clearly, our expectations were high, but what we didn't expect to see was some of the most gorgeous landscapes and scenery from the water than we could ever have dreamed up. So let's now get into that juicy, nitty-gritty stuff you're here to find out. We're gonna try to be politically correct and as least controversial as possible, but we also want to share our true experience. And that truth is this. Let's start with Morocco. I've never heard so much radio, conversation, and chit-chat on any of our sails as we have coming into the Med, coming into Morocco. But we are almost there. We are actually 6.7 nautical miles out. For us, it was a lot less inviting than we had imagined. And we saw tons and tons of trash everywhere we went.
Go to your left, there's not so much trash.
As weird as it sounds, the trash actually made sense to us to a certain degree because there were barely any trash cans out. So where were people going to dispose of their garbage? We'd never throw our trash on the ground, but seeking out a public trash can was a task in and of itself. There was also a lot of hustling going on too. People approaching us while we were walking and while we were sitting at tables eating, trying to beg for money or sell us something to make money. And the smells while walking through the streets were something that I will not soon forget either. To top it off, the food for us was also quite the experience. We got quite sick for over a week after eating something bad. There was some food we genuinely enjoyed in our 3 weeks in Morocco though, at this Asian restaurant when we first arrived. And then when we took a cooking class and we learned to cook a traditional Moroccan tagine dish. Both of those experiences were top notch. But even the challenges of traveling in a place like Morocco became stepping stones to understanding and actually appreciating the culture. The landscape of the area was truly legendary. And we also visited Chef Chowan while there. It was bright, it was gorgeous, and ultra picturesque. It was also scorching hot, and definitely had a level of that tropical feel that we expected for the Med. Next up is Ibiza. Our sail there was mixed with rough sailing and pounding into the waves.
Well, considering that the majority of it's been pounding dead straight into a headwind and dead against the waves, I'd say the whole thing's been about as rough as wiping your rear end with a corn cob.
And then calm, peaceful sailing. It certainly lived up to the European version of Caribbean or tropical expectations that we had. We enjoyed swimming, hiking, walks, the sunshine. The anchorages were insanely crowded during the day, but by sunset, people would start clearing out. The unique thing was the dinghy dock situation, since trying to dinghy to land was not really a thing in Ibiza. You could call a phone number or call on the radio and have someone come pick you up from your boat and take you to land, and then back to your boat, sort of like a large taxi dinghy. There were tourists being ferried to different beaches, so they didn't want a ton of dinghies in the way at the ferry docks, it seemed. So finding a dinghy dock was really difficult, but we did find one, although it did feel like it was in the middle of a homeless camp type of area. But walking to where you wanted to go from the dinghy dock that we found was quite a hike. I'm certain that there are plenty of luxurious places on the island of Ibiza to go to. However, the overall vibe was a lot more young and casual than we thought. Many people appeared to be teenagers or barely 18 to 21 or 22 years old. Most people in restaurants were wearing bikinis, swim trunks, no shirt, and their hat flipped backwards. It sort of gave that Fort Lauderdale feel, or even that Panama City, Florida spring break type of feel. If you know, you know. I personally would love to go back to Ibiza for the warm water, swimming, and stunning anchorages. Regardless of the massive crowds of boats flooding in and the casual vibe, I actually loved the no cares given attitude that exuded from the place. But I would love to see some additional dinghy docks. Next, we sailed over to Palma de Mallorca, where we only spent a few nights. We stayed in a marina, we had excellent food, and we were super intrigued with the area. But we were in a bit of a hurry to get to France, because at the time, we were headed to the Cannes Yachting Festival. Plus, we had a bit of a weather window to either leave ahead of a little storm that was soon to come through, or we'd have to wait several days for the storm to pass over before leaving, where we'd basically be stuck on the boat because of the rain. So, we didn't take our time in Palma de Mallorca. We got out ahead of the little storm and headed to France. But our fleeting visit to Palma de Mallorca left us spellbound. Delicious food and a strategic departure to dance with the winds, a short but sweet encounter with a place that left us craving for more. Next, we sailed 5 days to France. Our sail to France started off with a bit of rain, but it quickly cleared up. And then we had a good sunny sail for the remainder of day 1. Day 2 of that sail ended up being pretty sporty with a churned up sea state. We were able to sail speedily at 6 to 7 knots with winds in the 20s and even the low 30s.
This here wind has been cutting up like a brand new chainsaw. It's been constant in the upper 20s, low 30s, and we saw peak gust up to 37 knots.
Day 3 was choppy and rough, but day 4 was fabulous on the water. It was a tad bit sporty still, but nothing like day 2 or 3. On day 4, we anchored outside of Saint-Tropez about an hour or maybe 2. It ended up being my absolute favorite anchorage in France of the year. It was secluded, it was stunning, and it was not at all crowded. We felt as if we were off-grid in our own little corner with very few neighbors. Day 5, we made the 1 or 2 hours over to Saint-Tropez. We were there during a regatta, so it was extremely busy, but we fell in love with our Saint-Tropez experience. From the restaurants, the grocery store food options, the high-end vibe in general. After being in the marina for a few days, we headed out and anchored outside of the marina around the corner. Though it was ultra crowded, it was beautiful and a slight bit more private than marina life. Not only did the views of land and water take our breath away, but the views of some of the mega vessels anchored near were out of this world. It was an incredible place that we absolutely loved. Next, we day sailed over to Port La Napoule in order to go to the Cannes Yachting Festival, which was a 10-minute train ride from La Napoule. The day sail was easy and fast with little wind, so we motor sailed. We spent our time at the Cannes Yachting Festival just 10 minutes down the road, so we didn't experience much at Port La Napoule, but we did really like the vibe of the area. After spending several days there, we were ready for some time on the anchor, so we headed over to Juan-les-Pins, where we vegged out a bit. The sea conditions were rough and we experienced some rain. While we were on the anchor, we loved the magical view of the other boats in the anchorage, as well as the glimmers and glow of lights from land. But it was incredibly rolly, to the point that it could make a person feel seasick. So after several days of that, we got off the anchor and headed to Antibes, France. We stayed in Marina Port Vauban, but it was not at all our favorite part of France. The marina was under major construction, and the people of the area were a bit less friendly as a whole than those that were so warm and kind in Saint-Tropez, Cannes, and La Napoule. After there, for a few days, we made our way to a place we fell in love with, especially Sean. We sailed over to Belleux-sur-Mer, an easy day sail, no real wind in our sails again, so it was just a motor sail. The anchorage was packed to the brim, but we were able to get into the marina. The views from Belleux-sur-Mer were potentially the most gorgeous views of France from our boat we had seen, with cliffs that you couldn't help but sit and stare at. The people were friendly, the area felt very resort-like and extremely peaceful, and though the anchorage was packed, the land part of Belleux-sur-Mer did not at all feel too crowded. We were very close to Monaco, so we took a train 10 or 15 minutes over to Monaco to celebrate my 30th birthday. We also loved Monaco. The food, the vibe, the views, the shopping, It was so up our alley. And for our last stop in France before Italy, we headed over to Menton, France, which borders Italy. Though it's cute from the water, it reminded us quite a bit of Antibes, just not our absolute favorite place in the world, but nothing notably wrong with it either. The water in the anchorage was, however, perhaps the clearest water we saw during our French sailing. But things were starting to feel slightly chilly early mornings and late in the evenings. The weather also started getting a little unpredictable with sudden windstorms that would blow through out of nowhere, rocking all the boats in the anchorages. And when we were in Menton, France, this is when Sean thought maybe we should place Tela Ru in a slip because we were slightly beyond the sailing season for the Med at this point. And the option was to either sail onwards to see our second of the 7 wonders of the world or the year, the Colosseum in Italy, or save it for next year. Saving it for next year would mean that we'd have quite a long winter of just being parked in a slip. So as you probably saw on our channel already, we decided to push the boundaries of the sailing season. We sailed to San Remo, Italy, Arenzano, Porto de Pisa, Porto Azzurro on the island of Elba, then over to Riva di Triano, where we took a bus to Rome and saw the Colosseum. Then we headed out of Italy in an attempt to sail to our wintering destination and ended up in a pretty hardcore storm. We eventually found our way, after 48 hours of sea, into La Spezia, Italy, waited it out for 8 days, and then made our way to our final destination of the winter and got Tela Ru safely into a slip. The gist of things are that so far, our experience sailing the Med has been pretty spot on in the one aspect of the unpredictable and unreliable wind. Next, the thought of the Med being its own tropical European version of the Caribbean has not at all been accurate since arriving in France and Italy. While there have been moments of a tropical feel here and there, it's been more of a historic and ancient buildings and ruins type of feel. The climate has been chillier even on the warmest days than we expected. And as far as anchorages go, our experience in each place that we anchored ended up being pretty rolly and rough and not quite as protected as you would expect. At least not once we got to France. Our anchorage in Ibiza wasn't too bad at all. And though there are tons and tons of sailboats in the Med, the wind conditions being all over the place, we personally felt like it would make more sense to have a powerboat in the Med. One really amazing thing we hadn't thought of was just how much there is to do and how easily accessible it is. For example, the transportation system of hopping on a train and easily getting somewhere hours away without having to rent a car is phenomenal and actually ultra budget friendly. We loved experiencing the car museum in Monaco by just hopping on a train. We also loved getting to experience the Lamborghini factory after hopping a train, and you'll soon see that we took another train and headed somewhere else once we got Tela Ru secured in the slip. The aspect of being in the Med and being able to get anywhere so easily is not something we're used to as Americans. Hopping a train in the USA to get to a different state just isn't really a thing at all. It's either you drive or you fly. So we love that about Europe. We actually love Europe. It's an incredible place with exquisite cuisine, stunning landscapes and seascapes, amazing shopping, fantastic transportation, magnificent wines. We fully embrace the magical Mediterranean. Our 28 days of sailing the Med has for us been a journey of discovery. We have loved being in Europe, and we are very excited for what is to come when we're back aboard Tela Ru soon and can sail again. Now that we've gotten our feet wet in the Med, we feel like we can have an even greater experience going forward in 2024. Though every wave may not be filled with utter joy, we have found exploring to be irresistible. So y'all, to be straightforward, we learned through Sailing the Med the beauty behind the challenges, unpredictable winds, refreshing climates, and surprisingly lively anchorages. The Mediterranean, not just a paradise, but a teacher, urging us to adapt and appreciate its unique rhythm. Amidst little winds at times, storms at others, and a few rolly anchorages, what actually unfolded for us was beyond our expectations. A journey that not only met but surpassed our hopes. We no longer have to wonder or guess. We lived and experienced firsthand the marvelous, the magnetic, the glamorous Mediterranean. And we're hopeful that 2024 will be filled with lots more time on the anchor, plenty more time in the water, and of course, we are looking forward to another year of fantastic cuisine as we make plans to sail to brand new places. We hope this gave y'all a good behind the scenes type of look at what it's been like for us to sail the Med. Year 1 was filled with the adventure of crossing the ocean, sailing the Med, traveling to 10 unique and incredibly fascinating countries. What in the world will year 2 bring for sailing Tela Ru? If y'all liked this video, we have 97 other binge-worthy videos on our channel that you may enjoy checking out. But you can see our list of our top 5 current favorite videos in the description box. And watch those now. And we'll see y'all next time on Sailing Tela Ru.